Kira stood in the observation deck of the Valthene command ship, watching the planet Terminus 7 rotate slowly below. The world looked peaceful from orbit, but Kira knew better. Down there, 3 different species were fighting for control of mining facilities that produced rare metals. The war had been going on for 8 months. A door opened behind Kira. Commander Voth entered carrying a data tablet. Voth was old for a Valthene, his skin showing the silver patterns of age and wisdom. "Your assignment is ready," Voth said, handing the tablet to Kira. Kira read the information quickly. An observer position with human military forces. 3rd Expeditionary Force currently stationed on Terminus 7. Duration indefinite. Purpose: to understand human tactical decisions in combat situations. Why humans? Kira asked. Voth walked to the window, looking down at the planet. 47 days ago, a human unit held a position called Black Ridge. They were told to delay the enemy for 6 hours while reinforcements arrived. They held for 47 days. When relief finally came, only 12 humans were still alive out of 200. But they never abandoned the position. Kira processed this information. That makes no tactical sense. They should have retreated when the situation became impossible. That is exactly why you are going, Voth said. We need to understand this behavior. Other coalition species retreat when logic demands it. Humans do not. This makes them unpredictable. Unpredictable allies are dangerous. Kira felt a small twist of anxiety. The Valthene were not warriors by nature. They were analysts, strategists, mathematicians. The idea of being near actual combat made Kira's body temperature drop slightly. "You will be safe," Voth assured. "The humans have agreed to keep you away from direct fighting. You will observe from secure positions." 2 hours later, Kira was on a transport ship heading down to the surface. The ride was rough. The transport shook and rattled as it entered the atmosphere. Kira gripped the safety harness, trying to stay calm. The human pilot turned back and grinned. "First time on a combat drop?" "Yes," Kira admitted. "Don't worry. I've done this 300 times. Only crashed twice." The pilot laughed at his own joke. Kira did not find this comforting. The transport landed at Forward Base Hammer, a military installation built into the side of a mountain. Soldiers moved everywhere, carrying equipment, loading vehicles, preparing for operations. Most were human, but Kira saw a few other species as well. A human officer approached as Kira stepped off the transport. He was tall, with dark hair cut very short and tired eyes. He wore the uniform of a commander. "Observer Kira?" the human asked, extending his hand. Kira looked at the hand, remembering the human greeting custom, and carefully grasped it. The human's grip was firm but not painful. "I am Commander Taman. Welcome to Hammer Base," the commander smiled. Which Kira understood was a friendly gesture among humans, though it showed their teeth in a way that seemed aggressive. "Thank you, Commander," Kira said. Taman led Kira through the base, explaining various operations. He spoke quickly, and Kira had to focus to keep up. Humans talked fast and used many idioms that made no literal sense. They entered a large room where soldiers were eating. The smell of human food filled the air. It was strange but not unpleasant. Taman brought Kira to a table where several soldiers sat. "This is Captain Hana, my tactical officer," Taman said, indicating a woman with sharp eyes and quick movements. "And this is squad leader Minho. You'll be assigned to his unit for the upcoming operation." Minho was shorter than Taman, with strong shoulders and scars on his arms. He nodded to Kira. "Hope you're ready for some action." "I was told I would observe from safe positions," Kira said carefully. The soldiers at the table laughed, but not unkindly. "Safe is a relative term in war," Hana said. For the next hour, Kira sat with the soldiers and listened to them talk. They joked constantly, laughed at things that did not seem funny, and told stories about previous battles. One soldier named Junho described a fight where he ran out of ammunition and had to throw rocks at the enemy. The others found this hilarious. Kira was confused. These soldiers were preparing to fight tomorrow. Many of them might die, yet they acted as if they were at a social gathering. Where was the fear? Where was the careful preparation and ritual that most species performed before combat? "You look worried," Minho said to Kira. "I am trying to understand your behavior," Kira admitted. "You face danger tomorrow, yet you laugh and tell jokes." Minho shrugged. "What else should we do? Sit around being scared? That doesn't help anything. Might as well enjoy the time we have." Later, Taman called a briefing. All squad leaders and officers gathered in the command center. A holographic display showed a large building complex. "This is mining facility Delta 9, Taman explained. "The Krivathi swarm took it 3 weeks ago. We're taking it back. Intelligence estimates 800 Krivathi warriors inside. We'll have 200 soldiers for the assault." Kira quickly calculated the numbers. The odds were not good. The Krivathi were strong fighters, each one capable of killing several opponents before being brought down. "What is the projected casualty rate?" Kira asked. The room went quiet. Several humans looked at Kira with expressions that were hard to read. "High," Taman said simply. "But the facility is vital. We need those minerals for ship construction. If we don't take it back, the war in this sector will be lost." "How high?" Kira pressed. Hana looked at her data tablet. "Combat models suggest 66% casualties for our forces." Kira felt shock run through their body. "Those are unacceptable numbers. No military operation should proceed with such projections. And yet we're going anyway," Minho said quietly. "Because someone has to." The briefing continued. Taman explained the assault plan. It was clever, using the facility's layout to create bottlenecks where human weapons could be most effective. But even with good tactics, the numbers were terrible. After the briefing ended, soldiers began filing out. Kira noticed that none of them requested reassignment. None of them argued against the mission. They simply accepted it and moved on. Kira approached Minho as he was leaving. "May I ask you a question?" "Sure," Minho said. "Why do you not request transfer?" "The mission has a very high probability of your death." Minho was quiet for a moment. He looked tired suddenly, older than his years. "Because retreat isn't in our vocabulary. Not because we're brave. Because if we fall back, someone else has to hold the line. And we don't ask others to do what we won't." "I do not understand," Kira said. "You will," Minho replied. "Come on, we drop at dawn. You should get some rest." That night, Kira lay in the assigned quarters, unable to sleep. Through the thin walls, Kira could hear soldiers talking, laughing, some singing quiet songs. These humans knew many of them would die tomorrow. Yet they sounded almost peaceful. Kira had studied 17 different species in military contexts. All of them showed fear before battle. All of them retreated when the odds became impossible. But humans seemed to operate on different logic entirely. As dawn approached, Kira heard the base coming to life. Soldiers prepared their equipment, checked their weapons, said goodbye to friends. Kira dressed in the protective gear the humans had provided and went to find Minho's squad. They were gathered near the drop pods, the vehicles that would take them down to the battle. Minho saw Kira and waved them over. "Ready for this?" he asked. "No," Kira said honestly. Minho laughed. "Good. Only idiots aren't nervous before a fight. Being scared keeps you alive." "You do not look scared," Kira observed. "I'm terrified," Minho said. "But I'm going anyway." "That's not courage. That's just duty." The call came to board the drop pods. Kira followed Minho's squad into the cramped metal container. 6 soldiers plus Kira all strapped into seats. The door sealed shut with a hiss. 30 seconds to drop, a voice announced over the speaker. Minho looked at his squad. "Remember the drill. Stay together, watch your corners, and nobody does anything stupid." "Define stupid," one soldier joked. "Anything that gets you killed before lunch," Minho replied. The soldiers laughed. Then the drop pod fell away from the transport ship, and they were screaming toward the planet's surface at incredible speed. Kira gripped the harness and tried not to panic. Through the small window, Kira could see other drop pods falling like metal rain. Hundreds of them, each carrying soldiers toward battle, toward a fight that the numbers said they should not win. The pod shook violently as it hit atmosphere. Heat washed over the hull. Kira's vision blurred from the force, then suddenly they were on the ground. The impact was hard but not painful. The door exploded open and smoke filled the interior. "Move, move, move," Minho shouted. The soldiers poured out of the pod, weapons ready. Kira stumbled after them, trying to stay close. Around them, the battlefield emerged from the smoke. The mining facility loomed ahead, dark and silent. Other human units were forming up, taking positions, and from inside the facility, Kira heard a sound that made their blood freeze. The clicking, chittering sound of the Krivathi swarm. The battle was about to begin. The mining facility was bigger than Kira expected. It stretched across the valley floor like a metal city, all sharp angles and industrial towers. Smoke rose from several sections where fighting had already started. The sound of weapons fire echoed off the mountains. Minho's squad moved quickly through the rubble outside the facility. Kira tried to keep up, but the humans moved with practiced efficiency that was hard to match. They communicated with hand signals and short words, each soldier knowing exactly where to go. "Contact front," someone shouted. Kira saw them then. The Cravathi. They poured out of a loading bay entrance like water from a broken dam. Dozens of them, their chitinous bodies reflecting the morning light. Each one was the size of a large human with 6 limbs and mandibles that could cut through metal. The human weapons opened fire. The sound was deafening. Kira dropped low, covering their ears. All around, humans were shooting in controlled bursts, falling back to covered positions, reloading and firing again. 3 Cravathi fell, then 5, then 10, but more kept coming. Minho's voice cut through the chaos. "Fall back to the gate." "We hold at the gate." The squad moved as one unit, retreating in stages while maintaining fire. Kira ran with them, heart pounding so hard it felt like it would burst. They reached a large reinforced door, the main entrance to the facility's central section. "Defensive positions," Minho ordered. The soldiers spread out using the doorframe and nearby equipment for cover. Kira huddled behind a metal crate, trying to become as small as possible. Captain Hana's voice crackled over the radio. "All units, the Cravathi numbers are triple what we expected. Eastern and western approaches are overrun. Coalition forces are falling back to secondary positions." Minho pressed his radio button. "What about the gate?" There was a pause. Then Taemin's voice came through. "Hold the gate. If they get through there, they can flank our entire force. We need you to hold." "Understood," Minho said. He looked at his squad. "You heard the commander. We're staying." One soldier, a young woman named Isol, checked her ammunition. "How long do we hold?" "Until they tell us we can leave," Minho replied. Kira's mind worked quickly, calculating the odds. The Cravathi were coming from the facility interior. This corridor was the only way to reach the human positions behind them. If Minho's squad retreated, the enemy would have a clear path. But the squad was only 12 soldiers, against hundreds of Cravathi. "This is not logical," Kira said. "You should retreat. The numbers are impossible." A soldier named Deho laughed without humor. "Logic doesn't hold positions. Soldiers do." The Cravathi came. They filled the corridor like a living wave, clicking and screeching. The sound was horrible, scraping against Kira's senses. The humans opened fire immediately. The first Cravathi fell, then the second and third, but they kept coming. The corridor became a killing ground, bodies piling up, but the enemy pressed forward over their own dead. Kira watched in horror and fascination. The humans fired without pause, their movements mechanical and precise. When one soldier's weapon overheated, another covered their sector while they switched to a backup weapon. They worked together like parts of a single organism. An hour passed. Then 2. The Cravathi kept coming in waves. Between assaults, the humans reloaded, drank water, and checked their ammunition counts. "We're at 40% ammunition," Isol reported. "Make every shot count," Minho said. Another wave hit. This time, several Cravathi got closer before falling. One reached within 5 meters before 3 soldiers concentrated fire on it. Kira noticed something strange. The humans were singing. Quiet at first, then louder. A rhythmic song with a steady beat, and their weapons fire matched the rhythm. They were coordinating their shooting through music. "What are they singing?" Kira asked Junho, who crouched nearby. "Old infantry march," Junho replied between shots. "Helps keep the rhythm. Saves ammunition." 4 hours into the fight, a soldier named Sora took a hit. The Cravathi had adapted, firing projectiles from range. Sora fell back with a cry, clutching her shoulder. "Medic," Minho shouted, but there was no medic in the corridor. Junho crawled over to Sora while Isol covered his sector. He pulled out a medical kit and started working on the wound, still firing his weapon one-handed. 6 hours. The Cravathi attacks became more desperate. They were losing too many soldiers to the bottleneck. But they kept coming. Kira's calculations grew more frantic. The humans could not win this. They would run out of ammunition long before the Cravathi ran out of soldiers. The logical action was to retreat while they still could. "Ammunition at 20%, Deho called out. Minho nodded. "Switch to semi-automatic. Single shots only." The rate of fire decreased. Now each shot had to count. The soldiers aimed more carefully, took more time. But they still held the line. A Cravathi broke through. It leaped over the bodies and landed among the human positions. Deho met it with a combat blade, a long knife designed for close fighting. The two struggled for a moment before two other soldiers shot the creature. Deho fell. The Kravathi's claws had torn through his armor. Blood spread across the floor. Junho dragged him back. "Medic, we need a medic now." But everyone could see it was too late. Deho's eyes were already growing dim. "Hold them," Deho whispered. "Just hold them." Then he was gone. Minho closed his friend's eyes. For a moment his face showed something terrible, a grief too deep for words. Then it was gone, replaced by calm determination. "Deho bought us 20 seconds, Minho said quietly. "Make them count." The squad kept fighting 7 hours. Ammunition at 10%. The humans were exhausted, covered in burns from overheated weapons and wounds from near misses. But they held. Kira realized something then. The humans were not fighting to win. They were fighting to delay. Every minute they held this corridor was another minute for the rest of the human forces to establish better positions. They were sacrificing themselves for time. At hour 8, reinforcements finally arrived. Fresh soldiers poured into the corridor, taking over positions. Minho's squad was relieved. Of the 12 soldiers who started the fight, 4 were dead. 7 were wounded, some seriously. Only Junho was uninjured, and even he looked like he could barely stand. Medics took the wounded away. Minho gathered what was left of his squad. "Good work," was all he said. Later, in the medical area, Kira found Minho sitting alone. His armor was off, revealing the burns and cuts underneath. He was drinking water slowly, staring at nothing. "May I speak with you?" Kira asked. Minho nodded, gesturing to a seat nearby. Kira sat carefully. "I do not understand what happened today. The tactical decision to hold that corridor was not logical. You lost 4 soldiers. 7 more are wounded. The cost was very high." "Yes," Minho said simply. "So why did you not retreat? When the odds became impossible, why stay?" Minho was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was tired but steady. "Because retreat means they get through, and behind us are people who can't fight. Medical staff, supply crews, other wounded soldiers. If we fall back, the Kravathi reach them, so we stay, but you might have died. All of you." "Yes," Minho said again. "We might have, but we didn't. And because we stayed, those people behind us are safe. That's the job." "Your species values individual life highly," Kira said. "I have read your literature, your laws. You have strong prohibitions against causing death. Yet in war you throw lives away." Minho's expression hardened. "We don't throw lives away. We spend them. There's a difference. Every soldier who dies holding a position is buying time for someone else to live. We choose to make that trade." Kira processed this. "Choice. You emphasize choice, that's all it is," Minho said. "Anyone can retreat. That's easy. Staying when everything says you should run, that's a choice. We choose to stay." A medic came by, telling Minho he needed to get his burns treated. Minho stood up slowly. "You asked why we don't retreat," he said to Kira. "It's not because we're brave. It's not because we're stupid. It's because someone has to hold the line. And we decided it might as well be us." He walked away, leaving Kira alone with their thoughts. That night, Kira wrote a report for Commander Voth. It took 3 hours to write because Kira kept stopping, trying to find the right words. Finally, Kira sent it. The response came back quickly. "Your report has been flagged as emotionally compromised. Please maintain objective analysis." Kira read the response several times. Emotionally compromised. Perhaps that was accurate. Kira had come here to observe human tactics. But tactics did not explain what happened in that corridor. Logic did not explain Deho's last words or Minho's calm acceptance of impossible odds. The humans called it duty. They called it choice. They made it sound simple, but there was nothing simple about choosing to face death so others could live. Kira looked out the window at the facility. The fighting continued in other sections, but the gate still held. Humans still held it, and Kira began to understand that this was not an anomaly. This was not unusual behavior for a desperate situation. This was simply how humans fought. They did not retreat because retreat meant someone else would have to face the enemy, and humans did not ask others to do what they would not do themselves. It was illogical. It was inefficient. It cost lives that could have been saved through tactical withdrawal, and yet somehow it worked. The mining facility was retaken 3 days later. The humans lost 38 soldiers. 3 weeks after the mining facility, Kira was stationed at Forward Operating Base Phoenix. The base sat in a valley surrounded by mountains on three sides. It was supposed to be a supply and rest station, far enough from the front lines to be safe. That changed overnight. The coalition forces had launched an offensive on the western continent. It went badly. The Cravathi counterattack was massive and coordinated. Within 18 hours, 3 coalition positions fell. The enemy pushed forward, like a flood, cutting supply lines and isolating forward bases. Phoenix was one of them. Kira woke to alarms and running feet. Outside, the base was transforming. Soldiers were reinforcing walls, setting up defensive positions, moving supplies underground. The morning sun showed a disturbing sight on the horizon. Dust clouds. Thousands of them. The Cravathi were coming. Commander Taman called an emergency meeting. All officers gathered in the command center, including representatives from the other coalition species stationed at Phoenix. Kira stood in the corner, observing. "Situation report," Taman said, his voice calm despite the chaos. Captain Hana brought up a holographic map. "The Cravathi have surrounded us. Estimates put their forces at 30,000 warriors. We have 800 combat personnel. Supply lines are cut. Air support is unavailable due to enemy anti-aircraft coverage." A Vorlon officer, his scales showing stress patterns, spoke up. "What about evacuation?" "Impossible," Hana said. "They control all approach vectors. Transport ships cannot get through." "Then we must discuss surrender terms," said a Trellian commander. "The Galactic Convention is clear. In situations where resistance is impossible, surrounded forces may surrender with honor." Taman shook his head. "We're not surrendering." The room erupted in arguments. Multiple voices talked over each other. Kira watched as the non-human officers tried to make Taman see reason. The numbers were clear. Phoenix could not hold against such overwhelming force. "There are civilians here," Taman said, his voice cutting through the noise. 2,000 civilians. Refugees from the western continent. Medical staff, supply workers, families. We evacuated them here 3 days ago because Phoenix was supposed to be safe. "All the more reason to negotiate," the Vorlon officer said. "The Cravathi will allow civilians to leave. The convention requires it." "And what about us?" Taman asked. "The soldiers? We become prisoners of war. It is better than death." Taman looked at each officer in turn. "I'm not gambling with civilian lives. The Cravathi might honor the convention. They might not. I've seen what they do to prisoners. I've seen what they do to civilians when no one is watching." He straightened. "Phoenix will hold. Any coalition forces that wish to attempt breakout may do so. I won't stop you. But the human forces are staying." The meeting dissolved into heated discussion. Eventually, the non-human officers left to consult with their superiors. The humans remained. "How long can we hold?" Taman asked Hana quietly. 3 days, she said. "Maybe 4 if we're lucky. Reinforcements are 72 hours away minimum." "Then we hold for 3 days. Kira approached Taman as others filed out. "Commander, I accessed the Galactic Convention protocols. Surrender is the logical choice. The civilians will be released. Prisoners are protected under coalition law." "On paper, yes," Taman said, "but I don't trust the Cravathi to follow rules. Not with civilians, not when they think they can get away with it." "So you will fight an unwinnable battle?" "I will protect those people. That's my job." The Cravathi attacked that afternoon. The first assault was probing, testing the defenses. Human weapons drove them back with heavy casualties, but everyone knew it was just the beginning. Over the next 72 hours, Kira witnessed something beyond understanding. The base transformed into a fortress. Every soldier worked around the clock, reinforcing positions, creating overlapping fields of fire, preparing fallback points. They moved with efficiency, born from training and desperation. But it was not just the soldiers who worked. The civilians helped too. An elderly woman named Rin, a refugee from a destroyed colony, organized civilian volunteers. They carried ammunition to the walls. They brought food and water to exhausted soldiers. They helped in the medical bay, treating the wounded. "You should be in the shelters," Kira told Rin during one supply run. Rin smiled, her weathered face calm. My grandson is on those walls. I won't hide while he fights. On day 2, the Cravathi attacks intensified. Wave after wave crashed against Phoenix's defenses. The humans held, but the cost mounted. The medical bay filled with wounded. Supplies dwindled. Kira found Medical Officer Ji-Wan in the surgical area. She had been working for 36 hours straight, moving from patient to patient with barely a pause. Her hands were steady despite her exhaustion. You need to rest, Kira said. Ji-Wan shook her head. People need me. I'll rest when this is over. A young soldier named Haiyan was brought in, his leg badly injured. He was barely 18, on his first deployment. He cried as Ji-Wan worked on him, not from pain but from fear. I'm scared, he admitted. I don't want to die. Ji-Wan gripped his hand. Then don't die. Stay alive. That's an order. Hours later, Haiyan was back on the walls, limping but firing his weapon. Kira saw him and felt something strange. The Valthine did not have a word for it. Respect, perhaps. Or awe. On day 3, the Cravathi sent an envoy. The humans were surprised but allowed them to approach under white flag. The Cravathi commander, a large specimen with battle scars across its carapace, delivered a message. Surrender your soldiers. Release all military personnel to us. The civilians may leave unharmed. Taman met with his officers. Some of the non-human coalition forces wanted to accept. The odds were impossible. They had held for 3 days, but reinforcements were not arriving fast enough. An emergency council was called. Representatives from each species voted. The result was split. Some voted to accept the Cravathi terms. Others voted to keep fighting. When it came to the humans, every single one voted to fight. Taman delivered the response personally. We reject your terms. Phoenix will not surrender. The Cravathi commander seemed almost respectful. Then you will all die. Maybe, Taman said. But not today. That night, the largest assault came. The Cravathi threw everything at Phoenix. They hit all sides simultaneously, trying to overwhelm the defenders through sheer numbers. Kira was in the command center when the walls were breached. Eastern sector. The Cravathi poured through the gap. Human soldiers rushed to seal it, but the fighting became close and brutal. We need everyone, Hana said, looking at the map in horror. Every person who can hold a weapon. Kira made a decision. They picked up a rifle, checked it the way they had seen humans do, and headed toward the breach. Hana saw them leaving. Kira, you're an observer. You don't have to fight. Yes, I do, Kira said. And meant it. The breach was chaos. Humans fought hand-to-hand with Cravathi in the narrow corridors. The sound was terrible, the smell worse. Kira fired at targets, not thinking, just reacting. A Cravathi charged at Kira. Before they could fire, Hana appeared, her combat blade flashing. She drove it into the creature's weak point, then pulled Kira back. Stay close to me, she ordered. They fought together for what felt like hours. Humans and aliens side by side, holding a gap in a wall that should have already fallen. Junyo appeared, leading reinforcements. Fall back, we're sealing this section. The defenders retreated through a blast door. Engineers sealed it shut. On the other side, they could hear the Cravathi trying to break through. That'll hold for maybe an hour, an engineer said. Then we have an hour, Hana replied. Kira sat down heavily, the weapon still in their hands. Around them, humans were bleeding, exhausted, but still standing, still ready to fight. A communication came through. It was Elder Rin. The civilians want you to know something. We're not afraid. We know you're protecting us. We know you won't give up. So neither will we. Taman's voice cracked slightly as he responded. Thank you. That means everything. Hour 71. The base was barely holding. Multiple sections were compromised. Casualties were over 60%. Ammunition was critically low. The Cravathi were preparing for a final assault. Kira found Minho on the walls. He was preparing his last magazine of ammunition, checking each round carefully. "It has been an honor to fight beside you," Kira said. Minho looked surprised. "You sound like you expect to die. Do you not?" Minho smiled faintly. "I expect to fight until I can't anymore. What happens after that isn't up to me." The final Kravathi assault began at hour 72, and at hour 72 and 10 minutes, the sky filled with ships. Coalition reinforcements. They had made it. The battle turned instantly. With air support and fresh troops, the Kravathi were driven back. The siege was broken. When the all-clear finally sounded, Phoenix was still standing. Barely, but standing. Of the 800 soldiers who defended Phoenix, less than 400 survived, but all 2,000 civilians were alive. Kira found Elder Rin in the shelter, helping wounded soldiers. She was crying, but still working. "My grandson survived," she said when she saw Kira. "He's wounded, but alive. They all stayed. Those humans. They didn't have to. They could have tried to escape, but they stayed. They chose to stay." Kira nodded, unable to speak. Later, Kira wrote another report. This one was flagged immediately and sent up to the highest levels of Valthene Command. The medical ship Sanctuary floated in orbit above a peaceful world, far from the war zones. Kira stood in the observation deck watching stars drift by. The ship was quiet here, a stark contrast to the chaos of Phoenix. But the silence felt wrong. Too peaceful, too safe. Kira had been sent here to recover. That was the official term. After Phoenix, after standing on those walls and firing at the enemy, Valthene Command decided Kira needed distance from human forces. They called it necessary objectivity. Kira called it something else. Running away. "Your evaluator will arrive tomorrow," the ship's commander had told Kira upon arrival. A Valthene named Borin, a military psychologist. They would determine if Kira was fit to continue as an observer, or if the assignment had compromised their judgment too severely. Kira did not care much about the evaluation. Something had shifted inside them during the siege. Numbers and logic no longer seemed as important as they once had. Kira kept seeing Hyun's face as he cried in the medical bay, kept hearing Rin's words about her grandson, kept remembering the weight of the rifle in their hands. A voice interrupted Kira's thoughts. "Beautiful, isn't it?" The view, Kira turned. Medical Officer Jiwon stood nearby, also looking out at the stars. She had been transferred to Sanctuary after Phoenix. Her hands were bandaged, burns from working too long with failing equipment. "I did not hear you approach," Kira said. "Sorry. Didn't mean to startle you." Jiwon moved closer to the window. "I come here when I can't sleep, which is most nights now." "You are having difficulty sleeping?" Jiwon smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. "That's one way to put it. Every time I close my eyes, I see them. All the soldiers I couldn't save. All the wounds I couldn't treat fast enough." "You saved many lives at Phoenix," Kira said. "And lost many too." Jiwon was quiet for a moment. "Do your people dream, Kira?" "We process memories during rest periods. It is similar to dreaming, perhaps. Do you dream about Phoenix?" Kira considered the question. "Yes, I process those memories frequently. The breach, the fighting. The moment I thought we would all die. But we didn't," Jiwon said. "We held, that's what humans do. We hold." Over the next few days, Kira continued interviewing human survivors aboard Sanctuary. It had become a compulsion, this need to understand. The reports Kira filed were ignored by Valthene Command, but Kira wrote them anyway. One interview was with a young officer named Suho. He had lost both legs at Phoenix when a Kravathi explosive collapsed a wall section on him. Now he lay in a medical bed recovering from surgery, prosthetic limbs being prepared. "Tell me about the moment you were injured," Kira asked, sitting beside his bed. Suho thought about it. There was a civilian kid, maybe 6 years old. She had wandered out of the shelter during the fighting, confused, scared. "I saw her standing in the open, right where the Kravathi were advancing. I ran and grabbed her, got her to cover. The wall came down as I pushed her through the door. You sacrificed your legs for a child you did not know." "I guess I did." Suho looked at where his legs used to be. "Weird thing is, I'd do it again. In a heartbeat. That kid's alive because I was there. That matters more than my legs, but you will be disabled. Your life is permanently changed," Suho laughed. It was genuine, not bitter. Disabled? These prosthetics are better than my old legs. I'll be back on duty in 3 months. Probably run faster than before. Kira was amazed. You want to return to combat? After this? Why wouldn't I? The war isn't over. People still need protecting. He looked at Kira carefully. You don't get it yet, do you? What we do isn't about wanting to fight. It's about knowing someone has to, and deciding we're that someone. Another interview was with Jiwon, this time more formal. Kira asked the question that had been building in their mind for weeks. Your species is young, Kira said. In galactic terms, you have only been spacefaring for 300 years. Most species spend that time learning, growing, avoiding conflict. But humans fight. You volunteer for impossible battles. You hold positions that should fall. Why? Jiwon was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was thoughtful. I think it's because we remember what it's like to be helpless. Human history is full of moments where we couldn't protect the people we loved, where we were too weak, too slow, too late. We remember those failures. They're carved into our stories, our songs, our collective memory, she continued. So when we go to space and find other species, other people who need help, we think, not again. Not this time. This time we're strong enough, fast enough, brave enough. This time we can be the ones who stand between danger and the helpless, and maybe that makes up for all the times in our past when we couldn't. Kira processed this. You fight to redeem your history? We fight because someone has to, Jiwon said simply. And we decided it might as well be us. The next day, Boren arrived. The Valthine psychologist was older than Kira, with the silver skin patterns of age and wisdom. They met in a private conference room aboard Sanctuary. Observer Kira, Boren greeted formally. I have reviewed your reports. All of them, including the flagged ones. I assume you are here to remove me from the assignment. That depends. Boren settled into a chair. Tell me about Phoenix. Not the tactical details. Tell me what you felt, Kira hesitated. Valthine did not typically discuss feelings. They discussed facts, data, observations, but something about Boren's calm demeanor made Kira want to be honest. I felt fear, Kira said. When the walls breached, when the Kravathi came through, I was terrified. Every calculation said we would die. Every logical analysis pointed to failure. But you picked up a weapon anyway. Yes, why? Kira struggled to find words. Because the humans were not running. Because Hana and Minho and Taemin were still fighting, even though they knew the odds. Because I could not watch them die alone while I hid, because Kira stopped. Because, Boren prompted gently, because it felt right. Not logical, not tactical. Right to stand with them, to be part of something bigger than survival. To matter. Boren nodded slowly. Your reports describe this phenomenon. You call it the human line, the metaphorical place they refuse to let evil cross. Yes, humans have decided certain things are unacceptable. They will die before allowing those things to happen. They draw a line and dare the universe to make them cross it. And you have started thinking the same way. It was not a question, but Kira answered anyway. Yes, I used to believe survival was the highest priority. Now I understand there are things worth dying for. Things worth protecting even when logic says it is impossible. Boren was quiet. Then they pulled up a data file on their tablet. I want to show you something. Classified information. Coalition combat records for the past 247 years. The data scrolled past. Battle after battle. Kira saw the pattern immediately. In every defensive operation involving civilians, Boren explained, where human forces were present, the retreat rate is 0. Humans have never retreated when protecting non-combatants. Not once in 2.5 centuries. The casualty rate in these operations is 89%. But the civilian survival rate is 98%. Kira stared at the numbers. They die so others live. Consistently. Predictably. Without exception. Boren looked at Kira carefully. This frightens some coalition species. A race that does not retreat is unpredictable. Dangerous, but it also gives others hope. When humans are nearby, civilians feel safe. Because they know humans will stay. What does this have to do with my evaluation? Your reports suggest you have not been compromised by emotion. You have discovered an uncomfortable truth. Humans operate on a different survival calculus than most species. They value group survival over individual survival. They prioritize moral imperatives over tactical advantages. This makes them effective protectors but terrible at self-preservation. Boren continued. The question is, can you observe this objectively? Or have you adopted their mindset? Kira thought about Suho joking about his missing legs, about G1 working until her hands bled, about Taemin refusing to surrender, about all of them. Every human choosing to stay when they could have run. I have adopted their mindset, Kira admitted. I believe some things are worth dying for. I believe someone has to hold the line. I believe protecting the helpless is more important than protecting yourself. Then you are compromised? Yes? Boren smiled. It was a very human expression on a Valthian face. Good. You are exactly the observer we need. Someone who understands them. Because understanding is not the same as being compromised. Understanding is the goal. Kira was surprised. You are not removing me from the assignment? No, I am expanding it. We need more observers like you. People who can explain to the coalition why humans behave this way. Why they hold impossible positions. Why they never retreat. Boren stood. Your reports will be declassified and distributed to Coalition Command. They need to understand what they have in humanity. A species that will stand between them and danger always, without question or hesitation. Even when it costs them everything? Especially then, Boren said. That is what makes them valuable. And terrifying. That evening, Kira found G1 in the medical bay. She was checking on patients, still unable to stop working despite her own injuries. Boren evaluated me today, Kira said. And I am staying with the human forces. They want me to continue observing and reporting. The war changed overnight. For months, the fighting had been contained to specific sectors, specific worlds. Then the Kravathi launched something new. Totalvar. 50 worlds attacked simultaneously. The Kravathi had been holding back their full strength, and now they unleashed it all at once. Coalition forces were overwhelmed. Defense lines that had held for months collapsed in days. Evacuation orders went out across multiple systems. The strategy became simple. Save what you can, retreat from what you cannot. Kira was aboard a transport heading to Harvest when the orders came through. Harvest was a farming world, producing food for 12 systems. Billions of people depended on the crops grown in its vast fields. The planet held no military value beyond that. But that was enough. The Kravathi wanted Harvest. Not to hold it, to destroy it, starve the coalition into surrender. Coalition Command issued evacuation orders. Clear the planet. Let the Kravathi have dirt and empty buildings. The people were what mattered. When Kira arrived, the evacuation was already underway. Massive transport ships landed at 3 spaceports, loading civilians as fast as possible. The operation was supposed to take 4 days, but intelligence reports gave them less than 2 before the Kravathi arrived. Kira found Commander Taemin in the command center of Spaceport 1. He looked older than when they first met. New lines around his eyes, new scars on his hands. Captain Hana stood beside him studying a tactical display. Kira, Taemin acknowledged. Glad you made it. What is the situation? Hana answered. Kravathi forces are 12 hours out. We have 40,000 civilians still waiting for transport. At current loading speed, we need 36 hours to evacuate everyone. The math was clear. They did not have enough time. Coalition Command has ordered all military personnel to evacuate with the civilians, Taemin said. Priority is saving lives, not holding territory. But you are not evacuating. It was not a question. Kira knew these humans by now. Knew how they thought, how they chose. Taemin looked at Hana. Something passed between them, understanding without words. No, Taemin said. We're not evacuating. Human forces will establish a defensive perimeter around the spaceports. We'll buy time for the evacuation to complete. Coalition Command ordered. I know what they ordered, Taemin interrupted gently, and I'm respectfully ignoring those orders. Send my apologies to Command. Tell them humans are staying. Over the next few hours, Kira watched as 5,000 human soldiers prepared for a battle they could not win. They set up defensive positions around all 3 spaceports. Artillery, anti-air weapons, infantry positions. Everything they had. Kira found Minho at Spaceport 3. He was directing his squad, older now, many new faces. Isol was there, promoted to second in command. She had survived everything thrown at her so far. Observer Kira, Minho greeted. Here to watch us do something stupid again? Is it stupid if you know what you are doing? Minho laughed. Good point. How have you been? I have been learning. From you. From all humans. Learn anything useful? Kira looked at the defensive positions, the soldiers preparing their weapons, the civilians still loading onto ships in the distance. I learned that some things matter more than survival. Minho nodded. Good, took me 20 years to learn that. You picked it up faster. The Krivati arrived at dawn. The sky turned dark with their ships. Thousands of them, dropping warriors like deadly rain. Intelligence had underestimated. This was not just an army. This was an entire swarm. The battle began immediately. Krivati forces hit all 3 spaceports simultaneously. The human defensive lines held, but barely. The numbers were impossible. For every Krivati that fell, 5 more took its place. At Spaceport 1, Taman coordinated the defense while Hana managed the evacuation. They worked together with practiced efficiency, 2 parts of one system. Transport 7 is loaded. Launching now. Hana's voice was calm despite the chaos. Copy that. How many left? 22,000 civilians. 6 more transport ships. Taman checked his tactical display. The Krivati were pressing hard on the eastern perimeter. We're not going to make it. They'll break through before the transports can leave. Then we hold them, Hana said simply. Hours passed. The fighting intensified. Kira moved through the command center, watching humans work with focused determination. No panic, no despair. Just soldiers doing their jobs. A message came from Spaceport 3. Minho's voice strained but steady. Eastern approach is collapsing. We need reinforcements or we'll be overrun in 20 minutes. Taman looked at his reserves. He had none. Everyone was already committed. Tell them to hold as long as they can, Taman said. The words hurt to say. Kira watched Minho's position on the tactical display. A small cluster of green dots surrounded by an ocean of red. 20 minutes. That was all they had left. Then Minho's voice came again. Understood. We'll hold. Tell the civilians we bought them time. That mattered. The communication cut off. Minho was saving power, preserving ammunition for the final stand. Kira made a decision. They turned to Taman. I am going to Spaceport 3. What? Kira, no, you're an observer. I'm not an observer anymore, Kira interrupted. I am someone who refuses to let friends die alone. Minho taught me that. Before Taman could respond, Kira was running. Out of the command center, across the tarmac, into a transport vehicle. The driver, a young human soldier, did not question. He just drove. They reached Spaceport 3 as Minho's position was being overrun. The defensive line had collapsed. Humans fought in small groups back to back, selling their lives for minutes. Kira found Minho and Isol behind a barricade, firing at Krivati, who kept coming closer. Minho was bleeding from a head wound. Isol's armor was cracked in 3 places. Kira? Minho looked genuinely surprised. What are you doing here? Someone has to stand with you, Kira said, picking up a rifle from a fallen soldier. Might as well be me. Isol laughed, a sound of pure joy despite everything. The observer learned. They fought together. 3 of them. Then 2 more soldiers joined them, then 4 more. A small group holding a small position. Behind them, a transport ship was still loading civilians. Just 1 more ship. Just a few more minutes. The Krivati came in waves. Kira fired until the rifle overheated, then picked up another. Beside them, Minho and Isol fought with the calm efficiency of veterans. They were going to die here. Everyone knew it. But they were buying time. And time meant lives saved. A Krivati broke through, reaching their position. Isol met it with her combat blade. They struggled. The Krivati's claw struck her chest, piercing her armor. She fell, but not before driving her blade through the creature's skull. Minho caught her as she collapsed. Isol, stay with me. Got it, she whispered. Blood on her lips. Got the bastard. Then she was gone. Minho gently closed her eyes. For a moment, his face showed everything. Grief, rage, exhaustion. Then it was calm again. He stood, picked up his weapon, and kept fighting. The transport behind them launched. Its engines roared as it lifted into the sky, carrying hundreds of civilians to safety. Worth it, Minho said quietly. Then louder. Fall back. Regroup at the secondary position. The remaining soldiers retreated. They numbered less than 20 now. They took cover behind cargo containers while Krivati surrounded them. Kira's communicator crackled. Hana's voice. All transports are away. 40,000 civilians evacuated. The mission is complete, and us? Someone asked. A coalition fleet is inbound. ETA 10 minutes. Hold until then, 10 minutes. Kira looked at their ammunition, at the exhausted soldiers, at the Krivati gathering for a final assault. 10 minutes might as well be 10 hours. Taman's voice came over the general channel, broadcasting to all human forces on Harvest. This is Commander Taman. All civilians are safe. You did it. Every single person we came to save is now off this planet because of you. Because you held. Because you stayed when you could have run. I am proud to have served with you. A pause. Then, now hold just a little longer. Help is coming, the Kravathi charged. The humans fixed bayonets. When ammunition ran out, they would fight with blades and hands. They would not stop. Could not stop. This was what they did. The Kravathi were 10 meters away. Then 5, then the sky split open with light. Coalition warships dropped out of hyperspace directly above the planet, breaking every safety protocol to arrive fast. Weapons fire rained down on the Kravathi positions. Transport ships swooped low, grabbing human soldiers. Kira saw Admiral Kovac's flagship in the formation. The Admiral, a massive Vorlon who had argued for retreat at Phoenix, had brought the entire Second Fleet. He had refused to abandon the humans. A transport landed beside Kira's position. The pilot, another human, waved frantically. Get in, now! The survivors ran for the transport. Minho helped Kira aboard, then turned back. What are you doing? Kira shouted, making sure everyone's out. Minho ran back toward the fighting. Kira jumped out of the transport and ran after him. Together they found 3 more soldiers wounded and trapped. They dragged them to the transport one by one. The Kravathi were regrouping. Kovac's fleet kept them back, but barely. The transport pilot was yelling for them to hurry. Finally, they were all aboard. The transport lifted off just as Kravathi reached their position. Weapons fire struck the hull, but the armor held. They climbed toward the waiting fleet. From the transport window, Kira watched Harvest fall away.